What's good with the YouTube? You already know Big Flaco with a comics perspective, and I'm gonna smash, dash, and slide on through with a little bit of energy. Please hit the like, subscribe, comment, do all those things to help support this channel, and hit the bell notification with future fire content. I guess I'm a little excited. I got Rojo on here, man, and let's let Rojo say hi to the people real quick.
Hey, what's up, y'all, man? How y'all doing? It's been a minute. Jump back on here with Flaco one time and see if we can bring you some content like we used to back in the days, you know?
That's right. That's right. Well, we're gonna be discussing I've been doing a whole series on the feds, right? And one thing I found that was quite an interesting topic is going to be about how the NF North Daniels forged basically not an alliance, but a compatibility, like a friendship to where they could be on the same yards and stuff, right? Now I know Rojo has a little familiarity with the Texas cars, and he can kind of speak on them. And I can kind of give you a little bit about the agreement that they signed with the BOP, which is the Bureau of Prisons, in order for them to be on the same yards. All yards, pretty much, the NF and North Daniels that they're on are basically yards with all the Texas cars.
Yeah, man, I find that pretty interesting, bro. But, it makes sense from a strategical standpoint. In California, although anyone can really access the border and the resources that come from Mexico, the gentlemen from down south have that on lock. You know what I mean? It's really difficult and whatnot. And, in Texas, all of them groups have access to the border, because there's certain groups out in Texas that, they might have this 150-mile stretch, 200-mile stretch, but the border in Texas is vast. It's 3-4 times that of California's. So each group has their own little avenues and routes and, established contacts south of the border. So from a strategic standpoint to, be able to get your hands on things both inside and beyond the walls, it's a smart move to link up with them Texas cats, man. The Texas dudes are well established. They're a little different. Like I have a lot of history in Houston, and with the Texas Syndicate, and not so much any of the other ones, but I'm real familiar with them. But they're different cats, man. But for the greater good, and as we were talking about earlier, having a common enemy or a common adversary, maybe even if not enemy, it makes sense, bro. And it was a great business move, no matter how you look at it.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to cut that up. Okay, in my eyes, right, I've done a lot of research on all these groups. The Texas MA, right, which is not really called the Texas MA, it's called what is it, Mexican MA or something like that, right? They kind of changed their name on behalf of the California MA, right? They almost have function kind of in the most similar senses as the NF. They have captains, they have lieutenants, they have generals, they have all those positions, right? As well as they're supposed to kick back percentages, establish territory. They have articles like a constitution. Now it's not as um, the NF's constitution is very deep. There's ones is a little bit more simple, but it's still professional, right? Then you have the TS, who has ties to like Copas and individuals like that from way back in the day. So some of these old timers in the TS, they've had interactions with NF way back in the days. They had a little fallout in the system sometime in like the late 70s, but they're back on track now. And now all the other ones, Barrio Azteca, all these other groups, even the Aryan Brotherhood of Texas is allowed on this yard and is allowed to associate with North Daniels, right? So, the one that put this together was Mad Dog. Mad Dog was basically the number one, I think at that time, the number one captain in the feds. And so basically, he's the one that did all the communications. And seeing the feds, so it's different is you have to sign like a chrono. You have a spokesperson like a Mac rep, like in the state, you weren't allowed to have Mac reps, but in the feds, you can have a Mac rep. They sign that you're compatible, they'll put you out there.
Yeah, that's a trip, man. I trip on the whole signing of things, man. But if that's the accepted practice and the way they get down and the way to facilitate things out there, and it's been approved by everybody, I mean, you got to do what you got to do to basically make things better for you and yours. Yeah, Mac reps are kind of weird. I always looked at that as like a level 1, level 2 type of thing where them yards that I was on before I got my indeterminate shoe that had Mac reps, man, they were like straight police officers, damn near. You know what I mean? You be out there doing. I remember being in Susanville and doing something on the yard, and the Mac rep trying to chastise me like like I was gonna get a 115, bro. You know what I'm saying? So, but hey, when it's somebody like Mad Dog, I mean, obviously it's gone through the proper channels for that to be approved to be able to make those kind of agreements between other groups and the institution as the main thing. It's weird because you start thinking about the no dealings with K9 and enemy and stuff, and that's very, you can look at that as there's a lot of variables to that. One thing could be considered making a deal, one thing could be considered you know accepted practice, so it's a fine line, and it all boils down to who's doing it, you know what I mean? But if it's Mad Dog, a very respected individual who's been around years and years and has nothing bad on him, he's going to be pushing for the best thing for his group 100%. you know
Yeah, pretty much. I guess they can't be on the yards with like the SNM, which is the Sindicato Nuevo Mexico, as well as I think I'm not sure. ACMA has ties now with California MA. They were feuding at one time. It's kind of a trip because they're all their own entities, right? But one thing I found that was quite interesting, right, is I did a series not that long ago, right? New Mexico, right? The first prison gang in New Mexico was actually the NF, bro. They had up to 60 strong, and prior to the riots, the big riot that happened over there, they had up to 60, 70 strong. And they said part of the riot reasons, right, was, the cops, how they were treating people and the tenure system that they had, right? But it was also a lot of things that were going on with the NF and how they were abusing people, believe it or not. Because you had two gangs, the Carnales and the Nuevo, Syndicate Nuevo Mexico, that came together. And pretty much within a couple of years, the NF was gone. Um, I think it took a while for these guys to figure out like how the feds operate, who they could get along with, who was at war with who, because you're not dealing like California where you have like the Norteños, Sureños, Bulldogs, the SNY groups and AB, LLR. You have about fucking like 50 different groups you may be dealing with. And so you got to learn how each one operates.
Yeah, I mean, it's similar to, and I'm not saying it's the SNY type of thing in any other state by any means, so don't think I'm saying that, but it would be similar to as if California, the whole main line was full of, the traditional group segments as well as all these different SNY splinter groups that are on now. That's how a lot of other states are. You know what I mean? They're, all the Southwest states are pretty much organized, and that's what's going to happen when individuals pull together Texas, Arizona, New Mexico, California. But they politic way different, man. So it's man, it's really hard to explain how these alliances are made, man, because you don't know necessarily, like, if you're not there, who's cool and who's not cool. I mean, you come from California, you end up in one of these places, bro. You could land somewhere friendly, or you could be in a wreck, bro, like instantly, and not be any of the wiser necessarily. They politic different, man. So you gotta have these alliances, bro. Is what I'm getting at, man. Or it's gonna be bad for you, brother.
Yeah, most definitely. I think the interesting one I think is the Barrio Azteca, right? And how they operate, right? Because they're totally different than a lot of these other groups, you know what I mean? And they have a strong line on that border, man. So like I think the NF is doing it for a lot of reasons. I think one, they actually get along. I've seen pictures of them all hanging out together and they all have similar beliefs. And two, they have the common enemy, right? Like let's just keep it real. The California MA has tried to dictate every Raza group's fucking functions since way back in the day. Before skipping them came, they tried to run that Cali car, all Cali together. That was just a part of manipulation, you know what I mean? So now they're being pretty much called on their shit. And with the amount of manpower that Texas has, right? I think it equals anything that the MA has as far as the California MA and the Sureños that are under them.
Yeah, if you put them all together, their numbers are definitely thick, man. What throws a wrench into the whole Texas prison scene are the Tangos, because, they're basically an independent entity similar to the Bulldog. So they're like, they're like the variable in Texas. You know what I mean? So you got all the established FAMAs or whatnot, the Sindicatos, the Texas MA, the Aztecas, Tri-City Bombers, whoever it might be. And they're established and they function real similar to California. Of course, their policies and procedures and expectations are different, but they're organized. They have, do's and don'ts and, goals and etc. Tango's the only thing that really throws a wrench in them. And I have no idea how Northerners or big homies or whatnot interact with the Tangos. I mean, I would think, being that they're quote unquote a rebellious type of group, essentially we'd call them a dropout group out here. I don't want to put that label on them because I'm not that in tune with Texas politics, but out here, the North or the South would definitely label them as, basically degenerates, man. So, but the established families in Texas, they're thick, bro, and they handle their business, bro, 100%. Are they different? Yes, very. I went to Houston recently, man, and man, it's a whole different world out there, brother. It would be real hard to fit in after being gone so long, but yeah, I would agree with you in your assessment that if you have all those Texas groups together, they're going to rival the numbers of the gentlemen down south for sure.
Well, if they're able to include the Tango Blast in that, which I'm not saying that they are, I don't know how the relationship is between the Texas, what do you call it, the FAMAS and the Tangos, because I know in the states a little bit different. But see, I've gone through Texas's a lot of their prison gang history, and it's interesting because they're similar. They're the closest in politics to California, right? But they actually have what you call peace treaties, like where wars ended. They sign it. Okay, the war's over. These are the agreements. They do a lot of that, like treaties and stuff like that. Like it's a little bit different in California, where yeah, there may be an agreement, but we're not going to sign some document that okay, on this date there's going to be no more of this. I've seen that with like the Raza Unidas, the Tri Bombers, which are smaller organizations, but they're prison gangs, right? Where sometimes they will cut territory to the TS. Okay, you can have this territory because they're smaller groups, yet they can still operate. Then something goes bad. Next thing you know, they're at war. They're killing each other. It's kind of crazy how they operate, man. There's a lot more prison gangs, and even though they could be at war for fucking 5-10 years, they could also be at peace for 5-10 years.
Yeah, the thing about Texas, man, is Texas is the second biggest state, just outside of Alaska, man. So Texas covers a lot of geography. With that, vastness, people are different a couple hundred miles away here, a couple hundred miles away there. Just like, Southerners, they're more cholo than Northerners. You know what I'm saying? The same kind of concept. So they're going to have different, based on where you're raised and how you grow up and whatnot, you're going to have a different outlook on life, right? So you're going to go to the group that's most similar to you. And Texas being so vast, that explains a lot why there's so many different groups. It's hard to dominate because, these Houston dudes, they might have gold teeth and, talk in a really urban manner and be into, they're similar to a lot of Bay Area Northerners in Houston. We'll just leave it like that, man. The style, the culture are pretty identical, man. Whereas you go to El Paso, man, them dudes are super choloed out. You know what I mean? They're Cortez down, LA Dodgers, Crease, Dickies, Benz, so and back before I forget, back to the Tri-City Bombers, they might be small, and I haven't heard a lot about them in a decade, bro. But they're with the business, bro. The Tri-City Bombers, man, they were out there by Laredo and Nuevo Laredo in Mexico, bro, and they didn't control, the vast amount of square mileage that the Aztecas did. But bro, they're just as ruthless, bro. They were like one of the on the rise groups to watch, man. I don't know too much about them and their most recent, history, but the Tri-City Bombers were a force to reckon with, bro. They were getting that money, and they were like the Aztecas as far as if you pose a problem, you won't be around tomorrow to continue posing that problem. You feel me? Well, that's cool. Guess I'm talking to myself. Anyway.
It's all good. It happens like that sometimes. I'll have to edit that out. Okay. But
Hey,
but
just
yeah,
leave it in. It'll be something funny for the subscribers, bro.
shit, fucking Flaco fucking lost his fucking microphone. Yeah, guys, I'm pushing mute every time I'm done talking so he can talk and shit because otherwise it echoes. So we're working hard over here on that. Yeah, man, I kind of tripped at the Latin Kings, right? Which is they're on the outside of this whole. They have the New York car and they have the Chicago car, right? But I was told that the Chicago car makes them fall under their car. There ain't no fucking bloodline or nothing like that in the feds. You know what I mean? There's some who tried to push that, and they kind of get pushed back. And then you got the Sureños, right? That are from what do you call Latin Kings? There's I think one or two Latin King gangs that are out there in L.A. or in the Southern California area. They're pretty much given the option whether they want to run Latin King or Sureño. But the traditional Latin Kings, they can go either or. There's very few groups that can go either or. And I think the Latin Kings and I think of course the Border Brothers can, right? But it seems like they've been putting more of the Border Brothers more towards the MA. Like that relationship is pretty much established, and they're one of the deepest cars in there.
Yeah, I have a little bit of experience with the Latin Kings, man, and not as far as prison though. I'm talking about like juvenile and Texas Youth Commission type stuff. And the Latin Kings were on the rise in the Houston area, back in the mid late '80s, early '90s, and they kind of faltered out, man. Like Texas, the demographics as far as gangs go in Texas has changed dramatically since I was there, man. I left there in 1992, and it was still, man, it was basic. There was families and stuff. Tango Blast wasn't even a creation, and everybody was like, as far as Houston went, it wasn't like, up north in Northern California, if no matter where you're from, this is your hood, whatever. At the end of the day, you're a northerner. The same thing with down south. Out there, man, you had like Los United Chucos, you had Latin Kings, you had Southwest Cholos, you had Denver Harbor, you had the Magnolia Cats, you had the Second War Cats. It was all neighborhoods per se, but they were independent. They didn't ultimately function together upon going to the system. You know what I mean? So they didn't have the Northerners running, everything from Bakersfield on up. They wherever they went in the system, they were basically free agents in a sense. You know what I mean? Yeah, the TS was the extreme dominant group at the time, but you could be a Latin King, you could be a Southwest Cholo, you could be a Denver Harbor boy, you could be a Magnolia, Greens Point, A-Leaf, it didn't matter. You could get approached by any different group. It wasn't geographical, and it wasn't set in stone that you were supposed to align with any type of certain individuals. Like, if you're from Sanho and you wear red, or you're from, Oxnard and you wear blue, when you go to prison who to check in with. Man, Texas is almost just barely establishing that, and that's because of the rapid growth of Tango Blast. You know what I mean? They're gonna try, like they took all the main groups in Texas off the main lines and everything, and that's what allowed Tango to be the prolific group in the whole state. Man, they're deep, bro. They were all like they had them locked down like they had us in the guys from down south locked down. So they just grew and grew and grew. And so now when people are going to the jails and shit, they're getting hit up right away by Tango and whatnot. Man, before you even get to a chance to run into a traditional organization, man, they got such a lock on the major cities that if you don't necessarily fall in line, they're going to remove you as a threat, and they're going to consider you like basically enemy, bro. Like right off the gate. Okay, you don't want to be with Tango. Why? Oh, you must be a sindicato sympathizer or Azteca or whatnot, bro. And Texas's way of doing things, bro, is a lot of it's forced by the administration all the way back to the building tenders or whatever the hell they used to call them, bro. They were damn near cops in convict clothing all the way up until slamming all the families down, but allowing Tango to recruit and grow as fast and as big as they wanted. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, I know what you mean, but you know what I found interesting in doing research? Somewhere along the lines, the ones that were became Tango, I forgot which one it was. I want to say the one out of San Antonio, I think it was. I may be
Orejones.
wrong. I may be wrong, but they were originally basically fucking Texas, I think syndicate or Texas MA fucking like their skinas or like their camaradas for the Sudanos
Yeah.
or you know what I mean, or like the bros. And then finally they got tired of it because they seen how they were being used, and that's when they kind of rebelled. And see, the Tango just happened by accident. There's different Tango groups that formed on their own, and they kind of are together, but they're kind of separate at the same time. I was kind of tripping on that, and I wonder how that's going to translate because there are going to be some Tangos in the feds. Where are they going to go? Are they going to have their own yard? Or are they rocking with a Texas car? Because a lot of those traditional Texas cars don't get along, but in the feds they get along.
Yeah, yeah. Just that's real similar to what's going on with the gentleman from up north and the Fresno guys in the pen. I mean, they don't necessarily get along on the streets in California, or they don't. There's no necessarily, or in the state, but in the feds, man, you were just talking about options about fucking whatever. They have the option of associating with the homeboys or hell with the homeboys. You know, homeboys being Northerners. You know what I mean? Um, yeah, politics are interesting and they change on a daily basis, man. I mean that's the only way to look at it, bro.
Yeah, well, the Tango, they've been having other issues is because you've had certain because they have certain people that what is it like they have their spokesperson, right? But like he doesn't have authority over everybody. He's just a spokesperson. And they have their I forgot, but they start to implement a little bit of basically almost like HHPs or rules. Now that's becoming a problem because look, traditionally they don't have rules. They're kind of like the Bulldogs, right? But except for they were able to fucking establish themselves. Imagine the Bulldogs were able to establish themselves in every fucking county in California. That's what you have with the Tango. That's exactly what you have with the Tango, right? Um, but I'm not going to say that they're like Bulldogs. Like I said, they're kind of man, they kind of act like Northerners from the Bay, to be honest with you. And there's been a lot of relationships between the Bay Area and individuals in the rap game that are actually Tango Blast, believe it or not. That's kind of interesting too.
Yeah, the thing with the tangos, bro, is sure, like the ones from Houston are real similar to the Bay Area cats, but you start getting into, the more rural areas of Texas, them tangos are different. You know what I mean? They're very, very different, man. You got the cholos, you got the gold teeth, you got you know, like if you started comparing them, like let's compare them to California, just because we all understand California. You know, tangos from West Texas might be real similar to Southerners, from California. Tangos from Houston might be real similar to Bay Area. Tangos from San Antonio, their get down might be similar to the Central Valley. You know what I mean? So since the Tango groups in they're in every area of the state, West Texas, the Valley, down by the border, Houston, Dallas, Fort Worth, San Antonio, Austin. Texas is huge, bro. And geographically, that creates change in your style. So yeah, it's weird. I find it weird, like you said, that Northerners have been, so closely involved with them as far as hip hop and music and, videos and whatnot, because at the end of the day, both the big homies from up north and down south in California would deem Tango to be a degenerate group, period. And I'm not saying nothing bad against them. They're deep, they're well established. I'm just saying from a political standpoint, with established, 40, 50, 60, 70-year-old organizations, they would look at them as being non-compliant to the way of gang life inside of the walls, brother. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man. To add to this, right? I was reading something that Skip wrote, and he was talking about the Bulldogs, right? He was talking about some of the end all hostilities stuff that he doesn't agree with, right? But he also said that they've never had allies. Like the NF and Norteños have never had allies, and I've always said that. Even the BGF was never an ally. And he further goes on that they have friends, and he mentioned the BGFs are friends, and he said we can't be we can't have allies with people who have organizations that have different beliefs. We have to be friends. So they're good with like the GDs, the Crips, the Bloods, uh, other groups that like I've never even heard of. How do you think is that going to help them or is that going to hurt them later on down the line?
Bro, to be when you have separate organizations, separate, goals, separate expectations of the people within your group, they're never going to align, more than 60-70% is the way the other group does. However, that doesn't necessarily mean it's not okay. It's not up to any group to determine how another group functions. Can we get along? Can we make money? Are we that different? Are our goals that different where we can't coexist, essentially? And on the flip side, are we that different where we can't be on the yard with you? Man, I would think to be beneficial without sacrificing your goals, your philosophy toward how you want to run your particular group, you have to make certain uh, accommodations. You have to lower it might not even be lowering, but maybe to you it would be look like lowering your expectations. Man, you could still function side by side. I mean, look at the Crips and Bloods. There was 500, 700 murders a year between them two groups. They're doing it just fine. They see things way different and whatnot. They have a common, pretty much a common thing, and their race and whatever. In order for the big homies from Northern California to be more successful on a national scale, they have to adjust their expectations from others and build up the common goals and common philosophies. Man, they gotta, hey, if you guys don't discipline your guy for that, that's your business. However, we're making this money and it doesn't affect us. um let's make things happen. You gotta have friends, associates, acquaintances in the world to help you out. I mean, and that goes all the way into your personal life, brother. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Yeah, I got one more thing I was thinking about too. I wanted to bring up, right? Because I know technically this isn't supposed to go down this way, right? But say, okay, look, say there's an individual, say like Chuco, right? Or one of these individuals, Sammy, right? Say there's a green light on them, but they won't put them on yards with current NF or whatnot. Do you see if they get put on any friendship yards, the NF trying to farm that out for them, favor for favor, if necessary, to get to the dude?
Um,
That's a tough one because traditionally it's not. It wouldn't be allowed. This is 2024 though, or 23, and it's a whole different game of the feds.
See, the thing with that, I could see it. However, we're echoing. I can see it happening, but then if you allow somebody else to basically do your bidding, when it's time for that favor to be returned, is there a chance that it goes against your beliefs? I don't know. That's a tough one, bro. That's a tough one. If the only way it would work would be basically an eye for an eye, no questions asked, but then that might be asking either group to change their moral fortitude. You know what I mean? So that's a rough one.
So basically, it has to be something that's secret that it doesn't expose them to do it, in my eyes. And I was thinking about this, right? Like, there's always potential for shit to get set off with any particular group. I don't think that's going to happen here because the North Daniels can only be on the Texas yards and a few other yards, right? They're not on every Texas yard, right? But I think that they always have at least enough numbers, right? That they're not going to get victimized and no group's going to try to take advantage of them, right? Plus, I think there's at least two C's on almost every yard. Now, not every C's the brightest. You got a bunch of fucking idiots, right? But you're less likely to find those idiots in the feds, right? So I don't, I don't see things falling apart. I'm keeping it 100. I
Yeah.
don't see things pretty much falling apart as far as relationship wise with these groups.
No, man. If anybody ever, if anybody that messes up a relationship with a group that's been established to be an ally, they're gonna get they're the alliance with Texas is too important. They're gonna become a statistic, bro. They're gonna get them out of there. And you know, them guys in the feds, you know, like you said, a lot of them ain't the brightest. Some of them are extremely bright. You know, the brightest manpower, you know, that the groups had ended up in the feds. You know, they might be slammed down, they might be few and far between, but they're giving out some good, you know, training, and you know, they're making sure everybody's expectations are known. So, you know, if somebody creates something that's going to put a wedge in between those relationships, you know, which are profitable for sure, because at the end of the day, the bottom line, there's two things to get out of, you know, coexisting with another group, and that's money and additional manpower, essentially. You know, they're gonna get whacked, bro.
Oh yeah, most definitely, man. I mean, we gotta talk about that, man. So yeah, further updates. So one more person just hit the system in the feds, right? Gangster Castro from Visalia. He should be all right, man, because he was in contact with the feds before that, man. It's gonna be interesting, man. We're gonna have to do a topic on that. Fucking Chuco and Sammy should be leaving any day. The only one that hasn't took any deals is DC and Boneo. And I've been changing my mind on this, man. And I was really going through some shit, man. And I think it's bye bye. You know what I mean? Very few are gonna have get backs, man. But before we end this, you have anything else to add?
Man, no, I think we covered a lot of wide topics. I'm a little bit rusty, so I kind of floated around a little bit in my thoughts, man. But you know, we'll lock it back in. Yeah, no, it's just nice to be back, man. I'll continue to get better in my delivery and whatnot, and hopefully y'all enjoy me and Flaco, you know, putting something out for you guys. And we're going to be doing it again tomorrow. Maybe, you know, what Flaco just said about, you know, the people who've taken deals and people who've left, and you know, their possible, you know, immediate future. Maybe we'll talk about that tomorrow, man. I hope you guys have a good one, and we appreciate y'all very much.